Ciao a tutti e ben ritrovati su Dragon Age Inquisition. La scorsa puntata abbiamo finito la chain di quest legate ai maghi, ovvero quella che abbiamo iniziato scegliendo di parteggiare con loro e non con i templari. Adesso dovremo andare a provare a chiudere di nuovo il portale, insomma il varco qui sulle montagne di Haven. Prima però voglio fare un giro di chiacchiere con i vari compagni di squadra, perché alla fine della quest dei maghi io ho scelto di reclutarli come nostri alleati, non come nostri prigionieri. Alcuni hanno provato, altri no, quindi voglio sapere un po' le loro opinioni. Iniziamo da Josephine.
The Inquisition appreciates your assistance in this matter, Lady Corbin.
And my miners appreciate your business. You'll have your lyrium by the end of the week. I should tell you, Ambassador, the Chantry raised some fuss when they learned about our arrangement.
The Inquisition must certainly seem an audacious idea to the Grand Clerics. We hope to convince them it is a necessary one as well.
I'll take my leave. Good day.
Who is she, Ambassador?
A merchant. I thought we should reach out to the dwarves to secure lyrium for the Inquisition's mages. According to Lady Corbin, it raised the ire of the Chantry.
How?
Access to lyrium makes us rather more formidable than anticipated. We're becoming a challenge. Sadly, the remaining Grand Clerics appear to be consolidating the Chantry's power, instead of comforting the masses.
È così da anni.
Mage circles started falling years ago. The Chantry was troubled even before the Divine's murder.
Yet many people continue to bear it great love. We will not benefit from its decline. Little but the Chantry ties Orlais, Nevarra, Ferelden, Antiva, and even Rivain to a common cause.
Has the Chantry truly promoted such peace?
Andraste's chant is familiar across kingdoms, a source of many shared customs. That is the crucial point. Common ground is the start of all negotiations.
Sì, è molto importante.
I suppose a shared faith can be useful when talking with strangers.
Precisely. And these similar interests are merely where we begin. We must learn to think beyond our own wants, to secure peace in Thedas.
Ok, niente cuoricino. Ti piace pensare in grande?
Planning to steer the history of the world, Ambassador Montillier.
I believe the Inquisition is already charting that course. Which brings me to a question, if you have a moment. The remaining Grand Clerics sent a missive inquiring about the events at the Temple of Sacred Ashes. They demand to know whether the Inquisition officially claims that Andraste saved you from the breach. If it were up to you, how would you reply?
Ah, bella domanda. E tu?
Will my answer change your reply to the Chantry?
If Leliana, Cassandra, Cullen, and I could agree on our official stance, I could answer that. We should decide soon. The revered mothers don't seem to know what to make of you.
Non so, in realtà lei non crede in queste cose, quindi Andraste non c'entra.
I'd tell the Chantry I was saved by circumstance, not divine intervention.
Yet as rumors your Andraste's herald grow, the Grand Clerics may not believe such a humble reply. A difficult situation, and I thank you for your answer. A good day to you.
E la nostra diplomatica non ha niente da dire sui maghi. Vabbè, vediamo un po' se qua abbiamo qualcosa da lasciare. Essenze oscure, perfetto. Vediamo se anche Madre Giselle invece ci dice qualcosa.
I understand you were instrumental in garnering the assistance of the rebel mages. It is well done.
Sorry.
And I pray this Inquisition fares better than the Chantry in its handling of magic.
Faremo del nostro meglio.
We will try.
In some ways, Andraste had the simpler task. Magic should serve man, and not rule over him. That tells us what should be, but it does not tell us how to get there. So many times the methods of men have undone the spirit of their goals. Once you have sealed the breach, we shall see whether this Inquisition is truer to the Chantry, or its own namesake.
Come sta la gente?
Can you tell me how our people are doing?
What would you like to know?
Come sta la gente di Haven?
How are the villagers in Haven doing?
You did well to gain the mages to your cause. The people have hope that the breach may be sealed. Some of them are returning to the lives they fled. Others are starting fresh. In either case, they no longer believe the world as they know it is ending.
E come sta la gente altrove?
Do you have information on people elsewhere?
The refugees in the hinterlands are desperate. Without help, starvation or war will claim many lives. Villagers in Crestwood are besieged by their own dead. They have sent word begging for assistance. People are vanishing in the hills of Emprise de Lyon. It may be demons or something worse, but they are terrified. More than that I cannot say. It is a chaotic time for all in Olay and Ferelden.
Arrivederci.
Farewell.
Until next time.
Quindi abbiamo altri territori poi da andare a esplorare, diciamo. Vivienne, oh mamma mia, adesso Vivienne mi cazzierà, già me lo sento.
If Fiona and her malcontents are joining us as allies, we need to be prepared. Abominations are inevitable. Cullen doesn't have enough Templars to handle incidents. Some of the rank and file need to be trained.
Beh, non ha tutti i torti comunque, con la massima discrezione.
Train our people, but keep it a secret. Let the mages think they're not being watched.
I like the way you think, darling. I'll have a word with Cullen. We are reliant on his people, absolutely. There has never been a greater threat to mages than the breach. Until it is closed, no one is safe.
Non vi fidate quindi dei vostri compari maghi?
You have a low opinion of your fellow mages.
It's not so much an opinion as grasping the obvious. Magic is dangerous, just as fire is dangerous. Anyone who forgets this truth gets burned.
I Delish non hanno templari.
The Dalish get along just fine without Templars or Circle Towers.
As I understand it, the elves limit their risk by refusing to have more than 3 mages in a clan. Tell me, what becomes of the Dalish youngster who is not appointed first or second?
Vengono mandati in altri clan.
If a clan can't raise the mage, they're sent to another that's in need of a first or second.
And if there are no clans in need of a new apprentice? For those who value survival, sentimentality is not an option. Tell me something. You said once that you wanted to change things. What future would you build for mages?
Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Bella domanda. Allora è che lei da maga Delish non è che non ne sa niente dei circoli. Quindi, però in realtà ha visto che i maghi ribelli da soli non gliela fanno, quindi tutto sommato, non lo so. Non saprei cosa rispondere. I maghi devono essere liberi, è un po' troppo forte. Serve il circolo pure. Alla chiesa servono i maghi. Proviamo questo.
Mages shouldn't be kept out of the Chantry. Who knows the dangers of magic better than a mage?
A curious idea. Such twists and turns your mind takes. It's something to consider, my dear.
Sinceramente non so cosa ho risposto, ma va bene lo stesso. Le altre due erano un po' troppo estreme, quindi vabbè, chi se ne frega, tanto. Piuttosto, vediamo un po'. Mamma mia, il sacrificio finale di Liliana nella scorsa puntata, pazzesco.
Your open support for the mages likely earned you enemies. Our agents will monitor the situation. If the most opposed can be identified, we may still turn this to our advantage.
Non ho paura.
People can hate me if they wish.
That gets us nowhere. The Inquisition is young, we need to build our support. Regardless, I applaud you for the courage to stand up for the mages.
Ti sei sacrificata per me.
In Redcliffe, you sacrificed yourself so that I could return here.
Of course I did. One small life in exchange for a second chance at history. I always loved a bargain.
Beh, in effetti, messa così. Un gesto nobile.
It was still a sacrifice, and still noble.
And I would do it again.
Continua pure.
I'll leave you to your work.
Tra l'altro abbiamo anche un po' di chiacchiere da fare con il nostro compare Dorian, che è stato appena acquisito, diciamo, dall'Inquisizione. Qui c'è Sera, Varric, Solas. Eccolo qua. Andiamo qua. No. Di vicino a Solas in realtà. Ah, ecco, potevo anche evitarlo il simbolino, anzi togliamolo, che mi dà fastidio. Andiamo a trovarlo. Beh, tutte steggiare cosa sono? Vabbè. Dorian!
The Inquisition supports free mages. What's next? Elves running Hallamsharal? Cows milking farmers?
Disapprovi?
I take it you don't agree.
On the contrary, I approve. Heartily. I do wonder if you've considered what this support of yours will do. For mages in general, I mean. The Inquisition is seen as an authority. You've given southern mages license to, well, be like mages back home.
Eccolo, lo sapevo. Chiaramente si può flirtare anche con Dorian ed è un grande, ma purtroppo non è disponibile per personaggi femminili, ma lui ha interesse solo in personaggi maschili e quindi mi devo limitare a considerarlo un bro. Magari poi un giorno mi farò un personaggio maschile e proverò una storia anche con lui perché è troppo figo, almeno finora mi è sembrato veramente molto figo come personaggio. È così terribile?
What would be wrong with that exactly?
Nothing, at first. Thing is, the Imperium was once just like the South. Templars, proper circles, all that rot. Then it changed, by inches. Not that this is reason to oppress us. Still, my homeland should be a cautionary tale, not a source of inspiration.
Indaghiamo un po'. Parlami dell'impero.
I'd like to ask you about Tevinter.
Ah, yes, everyone outside the Imperium always seems quite fascinated by it. Probably why they come up with so many ridiculous tales. Flying cows over Minrathous. That's mad. Alright, that one's actually true, but the cows didn't have wings. I digress. Anything in particular you wanted to know?
Comandano i maghi?
It seems strange that an entire empire would be ruled by mages.
Strange? Why are you less qualified to rule than some tart with a fancy crown? Actually, the fiction in the Imperium is that mages don't rule. The Magisterium rules. That magisters are all mages is considered a convenient technicality.
E il Magisterium?
What is the Magisterium, exactly?
The upper house of the Imperial Senate, and the only part worth having a seat on. Those seats are split among the circles of Magi, the Chantry, and the major families. All mages now. It's odd that outside the Imperium, you use Magister like it applies to every Tevinter mage.
Cosa sei allora?
If you're not a Magister, then what are you called? No special title?
I'm an Altus, which is almost as good as a Magister, depending on who you ask.
È un Altus, anzi un Oltus sarebbe?
I've never heard of an Altus.
Upper class. Those families who trace descent from the Dreamers, the first prophets of the old gods. If you're a mage and you're not Altus, then you're later, lower class. If you're not a mage at all, you're Soperati. That's everyone else. We do love our fancy words.
E l'Arconte?
I thought the Archon ruled over the Imperium.
Well, yes. Technically, he can overrule laws passed by the Magisterium, but that never happens. Even so, he gets to appoint new Magisters, which means all the families vie madly for his favor. Thus, the Archon gets invited to all the parties. The truest path to Tevinter influence, let me tell you.
Ma i maghi comandano sul serio?
If it's a fiction, that means mages do rule then.
Yes and no. Let me put it this way. Mages do rule, but not all mages are equal. If you're not from the right family, chances are you don't rule anything. Maybe you're even a slave. The idea that anyone could be a mage, however, keeps the masses placated.
Ed è vero?
Can anyone be a mage?
Technically, the potential runs mostly in bloodlines, but it's been known to happen. More importantly, commoners believe it can. Tevinter legend is chock full of mage heroes from humble origins. So they hold out hope. Someday my son or my son's son will be a mage. Someday. Poor sods don't realize that means he'll be a questor at the arse end of the 100 Pillars, at best.
Questo è un male?
Being a questor isn't a good thing.
I imagine the average non-mage likes to think so. Counting numbers and shuffling papers all day is better than many occupations after all. If you're a second-class citizen among a pack of piranha, however, your outlook changes.
Vorrei chiederti qualcos'altro.
Let me ask you something else.
Of course.
L'impero ha una chiesa?
There's an imperial chantry, isn't there, with its own divine?
You people aren't supposed to talk about the Black Divine, are you? If you mention him outside the Imperium, people make that face, like you're urinating in public. But yes, we do have the chantry, or a version of it. Night and day comparing it to yours.
Il nero divino?
Do you really call him the Black Divine?
We don't call him that, oh no. In the Imperium, he's the true divine. The woman sitting on the sunburst throne is some backwater pretender. It all stems from a disagreement over Andraste. Marvelous, isn't it?
Una disputa?
Why would they disagree over Andraste?
It's not my field of expertise, but the Imperium believes Andraste was a mortal woman, a mage. Down south they say, no, she's the bride of the Maker, ascended to his side, divine provenance, a blah blah blah. We feel better believing Andraste was one of us. Makes executing her less damning, you see. So we elected a man as divine, the South declared war, and we've been feuding cousins ever since.
Un divino uomo?
So, the imperial divine is always a man?
All the better to distinguish him from that other one, yes. Don't think there aren't a number of female magisters who bristle at that. Why can't they be divine after all? Same reason you never see a man on the sunburst throne. Because that's how it's always been done. Excellent reasoning.
È davvero così diversa?
Is the imperial chantry so different from ours?
Not in theory. The main difference is in the whole magic is meant to serve man, not rule over him business. Back home, ruling the unwashed masses is serving them, for the good of the Imperium. Perhaps it started with good intentions, but these days it's academic. The circles are in command.
Avete dei circoli?
There are circles of magi in the Imperium.
We don't have dismal little mage prisons, if that's what you mean. They're academies, prestigious ones. We have Templars as well, but they don't cancel spells or whatever your Templars do. They're soldiers.
They don't use lyrium.
Ha! As if there'd be any left for them. They watch for abuse of magic, yes, but only those who are weak or who fall out of favor get dealt with. Mostly they enforce their magisterium's edicts. The chantry smiles and nods from the sidelines.
Sei credente?
Do you consider yourself Andrastian?
The big question. It might surprise you that I do consider myself Andrastian. I simply do not believe in the chantry. It is a relic, whether back home or here in the south. Something from a bygone age desperately clinging to relevance. It's not an opinion that makes me popular.
Io sono d'accordo con te, però.
I share your opinion, actually.
That's not surprising, considering what the Inquisition represents. I'll say this. I may not believe in the chantry, but I believe in you.
In me?
That the Maker sent you, whether through Andraste or fate. Cassandra is not wrong. You are what we needed most at the moment we needed it. That's what they will say in ages to come.
Grazie, bro. Non sapevo la pensassi così.
You don't seem like the religious sort, to be honest.
If you define religious as sitting in a chantry and listening to a blithering hen tell you how to live, then no. If you define it as believing in the possibility that something larger than yourself exists, then yes, by all means. The world is bigger than I, even bigger than you. It laughs at all the things we think we know. The Maker doesn't need me to believe, but I do. The thought of no one at all watching out for us is too frightening.
Vorrei chiederti qualcos'altro.
Let me ask you something else.
So many questions.
Alleanza con il Tevinter? No, la schiavitù.
Anyone who talks about the Imperium mentions slavery. It's the center of the slave trade.
Ah, that is true.
And did you have slaves?
Not personally, but my family does and treats them well. Honestly, I never thought much about it until I came south. Back home, it's how it is. Slaves are everywhere. You don't question it. I'm not even certain many slaves do.
Dunque approvi?
You think slaves like it that way? Don't be ridiculous.
I didn't say they like it. It's all most of them know. In the south, you have alienages, slums, both human and elven. The desperate have no way out. Back home, a poor man can sell himself. As a slave, he could have a position of respect, comfort, and could even support a family. Some slaves are treated poorly, it's true. But do you honestly think inescapable poverty is better?
Mamma mia, lo sentisse Fenris. Non se la passano bene?
Is that what you call it? Treated poorly?
Abuse heaped upon those without power isn't limited to Tevinter, my friend. I don't know what it's like to be a slave, true. I never thought about it until I saw how different it was here. But I suspect you don't know either. Nor should you believe that every tale of Tevinter excess is the norm.
La magia del sangue è comune?
Just how often is blood magic used there?
Oh, not at all.
Not at all.
That's what any Magister would tell you. They'd be convincingly offended by the notion too. Of course, what people call blood magic here and what we consider blood magic are two different things.
E per voi cos'è?
What's considered actual blood magic in Tevinter?
Blood magic isn't inherently dangerous. Using your own blood or that of a willing participant, what's the harm? The problem is that what's permitted only gets you so much power. And what if you need more? You always need more. That's where we get into sacrifices and demon summoning. None of that is done. Not officially. Behind closed doors, it's a different story. Real blood magic can give you an edge, a leg up against your opponents. It's safe to assume that any mage of rank does it. The rest are quietly shut out of power, to put it bluntly.
E I Templari?
You'd think the Templars would object.
I imagine they did, long ago. Once, their investigations might have been sincere. Then their balls were cut off. Too inconvenient. Nowadays, only the friendless are accused. Most of them probably innocent.
Nessuno si oppone?
There must be some mages who oppose this.
Of course. I do. And I'm not entirely alone. Occasionally, there'll be a Magister who makes noise. And then the reform talk begins. All very patriotic. Meanwhile, that Magister will be quietly shunned. Chances are, surprise, it's learned he was a Maleficar all along. Most learn to keep quiet. Me? I enjoy the allure of pariahhood.
Alleanza con il Tevinter?
I'm wondering if the Imperium would be a useful ally.
I'd think you'd be more concerned whether or not they'd support the Venatori. They won't, of course. At least, not officially. They'll disavow all knowledge of dangerous cultists. Secretly, many Magisters will rejoice at the idea. And if the South falls to chaos in the meantime, all the better.
Sarebbe saggio da parte loro.
It would be in the Imperium's best interest to help. Surely it could use allies.
I think the Imperium gave up on the idea of allies a long time ago. We've been fighting the Canary for what, 200 years off and on? It's a point of pride that we go it alone. They'll sneer at the South behind their silk handkerchiefs and say, "You've had it easy for far too long." Let's not forget that the Inquisition seems to be an arm of the Orlesian Chantry. Anathema so far as they're concerned.
Ma non lo siamo.
We're not part of the Chantry. The Chantry opposed the Inquisition's formation.
You think that matters? Don't be silly. The Herald of Andraste. Your very title smacks of the Southern Chantry. You may as well be a heathen. I think they're far more frightened what you'll do if you succeed.
Tutto.
That's all I wanted to know.
Fair enough.
Parlami di te.
It occurs to me that I barely know anything about you.
Beyond my being a mage from Tevinter, you mean?
Beyond that, yes.
And beyond my being so charming and well-dressed, which is obvious to anyone.
Ok, infatti è palese, sempre cuoricino. Se lo dici tu.
You certainly think highly of yourself.
It's true. I could be more modest, but I'd be lying. No. What was I talking about? Ah, yes, me. I am the scion of House Pavus, a product of generations of careful breeding and the repository of its hopes and dreams. Naturally, I despised it all. The lies, the scheming, the illusions of supremacy. That's Tevinter in a nutshell, isn't it? Needless to say, my family was not happy with my choices.
La tua famiglia ce l'ha con te?
Why would your family be upset with your choices?
Because I rejected their idyllic plan. If they had their way, by now I'd be married to some unlucky girl from a powerful family. We'd live in luxurious despair, despising each other as I waited to take my father's place in the magisterium. I declined the honor, and thus it's best I'm far from home. Less of an embarrassment that way, you see.
Cernita meticolosa?
What did you mean by generations of careful breeding?
The great families of Tevinter don't have children. They refine traits, weed out the undesirable, and promote the rest. My mother was chosen for my father because magic runs strongly in her blood. Never mind that they loathed each other. They wanted a son who could become Archon to make House Pavus the envy of the Imperium. They got me. A cautionary tale that you should be careful what you wish for.
Disprezzi il Tevinter?
I'm getting the impression that you don't care much for your homeland.
On the contrary, I care for my homeland a great deal. There's so much potential. Sadly, we squander it. We refuse to acknowledge how far we've fallen because pretending is easier. We pretend the Canary can be beaten. We pretend that we're superior to everyone, even our own people. Not everyone feels that way. I don't. Sadly, we're the minority.
E perché ci tieni?
It just seems... So much of what you say about the Imperium is entirely negative.
It might sound that way. For all our faults, my people have many virtues. We are laden with history and culture. Tevinter is where Thedas truly began, remember? We treasure our past and preserve it. You can walk down a side street and find nothing built during the modern ages. And despite appearances, we care. Deeply, about everything. We have no reserve, not in war and not in love. If I truly believed my homeland was beyond all hope, I wouldn't miss it so much.
E perché non torni?
Why remain with the Inquisition? Why not go back to Tevinter?
I'm not exactly welcome back home. Not that it matters, I'm quite accustomed to being a pariah. It adds to my charm. I can do more for Tevinter here. If the Venatori succeed, it'll set my homeland back 1,000 years. I'm sure some magisters would disagree, but that's why we kill them.
Per ora è tutto.
I think I've heard enough.
That's too bad. I never tire of talking about myself.
Hai visto Alexius?
Have you gone to see Alexius yet? He's in the cells.
Not yet, no. I saw him before they locked him up. He looked despondent. broken. Not the man I remember, nor the one I want to. I suppose the Inquisition will judge him eventually. I wonder if there's any chance they'll show him mercy. He hardly deserves it, but for Felix's sake. I can't help hoping there's something left of the man I once knew.
Bella chiacchierata con Dorian. Mi piace, mi piace. Vediamo un po' invece Solas cosa ci dice.
So we have gained the mages. Excellent. They should be able to seal the breach. You are certain you experienced time travel? Could it have been an illusion? A trick of the Fade?
No, decisamente no. Dorian ne è certo.
Dorian was sure, impossible as it seems.
What an amazing gift. It is vital the Inquisition succeed to avoid the future you witnessed.
Oh, mamma mia. Ti ho visto laggiù, non è vero. È terribile, non affascinante.
So many were dead. More had been corrupted. Knowing what will happen if we fail.
I suggest we not fail. Speaking of which, you should ready yourself.
For?
This Elder One. You have now interfered with his plans twice. Once at the Temple of Sacred Ashes, and now again at Redcliffe. A being who aspires to godhood is unlikely to ignore such an affront.
Ah, bene, me l'ha pure buttata lì, però non ha tutti i torti, in effetti. Vediamo un po' Sera, invece.
Right. That's why.
Well, that's mages all
Sarah?
over. So many
She's a
robes. I
feisty
bet all
one.
of Ferelden lost
She
their
put your
curtains.
eye out.
Oh,
I didn't mean
just be the
anything
other
by
side
it.
of Haven.
It's good to see
Just
us
in
all
case.
coming together to serve the Maker.
Beh, ma sono qui per aiutarci. Oppure non ti fidi dei maghi?
Do you have a problem with our new allies? With mages?
No problem with mages. You're fine, right? My problem is magic. If mages sat on their hands, everything would be fine. I mean, yay, freedom. Great for them. Over there, away from me.
Vabbè.
I'll be back if I need you.
Go on.
È stato breve, ma intenso. Vediamo Varric.
The Mage Rebellion joins the Inquisition. I've got to admit that's a twist I didn't see coming. One thing you saw in the future worries me. I mean, it was all bad. But Red Lyrium and Ferelden, infecting people and growing out of them, that's bad. Finding more of it really punches a hole in my Red Lyrium at the temple was a coincidence theory.
Si diffonde rapidamente?
How long does it take for Red Lyrium to grow? How fast can it spread?
It took years to infect people in Kirkwall, but no one there was actually ingesting the stuff. This Elder One managed to take the worst thing I can think of and make it worse. That's an accomplishment.
Dobbiamo eliminarlo.
We can't leave a single piece of that lyrium out in the wild.
I'm with you on that. I've got people trying to find out where the red stuff came from. I think maybe we should make that a priority. But that's enough doom and gloom. You just won a big victory for the Inquisition. What are you going to do to celebrate?
Mi rimetterò subito al lavoro.
We can't know what's coming. Best not to get too comfortable.
I can't disagree with that. But maybe you should try to relax while you can. Things should be calm around here for at least the next hour. Take a moment to enjoy it. If the world's about to end, I'm sure the Seeker will let us know.
Vabbè, adesso andiamo... Ci rimangono Cullen, Cassandra, Blackwall e anche Iron Bull, il toro di ferro.
Need something?
Carry on.
Magic exists to serve man and never to rule over him. Foul and corrupt are they who have taken his
Ecco Cullen.
The mages are ready to approach the breach. I pray this will be enough to close it.
Hai dei problemi con me? Ma in effetti sì. Hai dei problemi con me?
You weren't happy with how I brought in the mages. Do you have a problem with me as well?
Of course not. I have no intention of endangering your alliance, but I must ensure the safety of those here. That concern extends to the mages. They are putting themselves at risk for the Inquisition, as are you. Any precautions taken are meant to aid you, nothing more. I hope you will accept them as such.
Qualcosa da riferire?
Is there anything I should know?
I'm glad to have the charges on our side. Bull's men are professionals, despite evidence to the contrary.
Non c'è altro.
That's all for now.
I'm sure you have other matters to attend.
Vediamo un po' Cassandra.
And what are we supposed to do, exactly?
What you always do. Complain.
We've already spoken with Commander Cullen. No one listens. We want better quarters. We want the Templars kept at a distance. And some respect for...
This is not the Circle. You mages are our allies, not our wards. Act like it.
How are we supposed to...
Deal with it. It never ends, evidently.
Litigare peggiora le cose.
Fighting with them will only make them more stubborn.
The mages are here as equals. They need to get used to what that means. It is your doing, after all. You created this alliance.
Ho fatto il possibile.
I had to think on my feet, and I did what I could.
Oh. I do sound like I'm blaming you, don't I? I don't disapprove. In fact, you did well. You made a decision when it needed to be made. And here we are. I wish I could say this was my doing.
Adulatrice. È merito tuo.
We wouldn't be here at all if you hadn't stood up against the Chantry.
You're being kind.
You're discounting your role in this.
Let's close the breach. Then we can say how successful I was.
Ma mi aspettavo mi cazziasse in realtà. Buono, dai. Grande Cassandra. Adesso è il toro di ferro. Il toro di ferro però suona male. Preferisco Iron Bull.
So, that Tevinter guy sent you into the future?
Lo sapevo. Bizzarro, eh?
Every time I think I understand magic, the rules change.
And you're a mage, so that's saying something. Anyway, I hope our new friends have what it takes to close the breach. Damn thing gives me a headache just looking at it.
Non ha tutti i torti. E adesso rimane il mio preferito. Dov'è? Dov'è? Eccolo là. Madonna mia, ste scatole.
There was never going to be an easy answer to the mage dilemma. What you did for the mages took courage. You gave them a chance. Everyone deserves one. I have to ask, what was I like in that dark future you saw?
Un eroe.
You fought with honor and died a hero. You did the Wardens proud.
Then I was worth something in the end. Thank you.
Ma di cosa? Grazie a
right
te.
now.
Ma è stato traumatico vederti in quel modo. Ah! Ok, abbiamo finito qua il giro. Direi che chiudiamo la puntata. Nella prossima andremo a chiudere il benedetto varco e speriamo in bene. Allora, vi ringrazio per essere stati con me e vi saluto alla prossima puntata. Tra l'altro fatemi sapere un po' come vi stanno sembrando queste puntate, se vi piacciono le scelte che faccio, se avete consigli, suggerimenti o altro. E se ci aiutate anche un po' a far crescere questo nostro canale, anche condividendo un po' questi video, mi fareste molto contenta. Detto questo, allora, alla prossima. Ciao ciao!